Are you the one? There are almost 8 billion people in the world, but are you the one that needs hope? In this very moment, there are 332 million people in the US, but are you the one that feels alone? Good news is, you're not alone. While 80,000 thoughts will bombard you today and can feel chaotic, just one thought can potentially bring you peace and free you. Join us today, together with our guests, as we sift through the challenges, pains, questions, and victories in life. In sharing our stories, are you the one that will be inspired to take the next step toward fully living the purposeful and abundant life God created for you? Welcome to Are You the One?
Hey everybody, welcome to Are You the One? My name is Trish and I am so glad to be back here with you and with two of my favorite ladies, Julia and Kelsey. I'm going to pass the ball over to both of you to just do a quick intro.
Yeah, I'm Julia, or Jules, and I am so grateful to be here. I go to GCU with my friend Kelsey.
What is GCU? Half the world doesn't know what GCU is.
Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm a sophomore there, and I'm studying dance and worship arts.
Hi guys, I'm Kelsey. I also go to GCU, and I am a worship arts major. And yeah.
Yep, and they are pretty amazing women and pretty high energy women. And I understand that because I come from that kind of background myself. So what we wanted to talk about, this is the end of the school year, literally, like they came over here for the recording. They had to drive an extra probably 30 minutes maybe getting here because of all of the end of year parents and students.
School traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So summer's coming, right? So this is, elementary schools and high schools have probably another almost month, but universities, a lot of them are leaving now. Mm-hmm. And so, which we equate with summer, right? So summer's here. And for me, like that meant summertime is all about rest. Like there's a whole, things switched in my life growing up when summertime came. And so I know it's different now, but I'm going to give you girls a picture of what it was like for me and give you a picture. So the day after school let out, my mom piled all of us into the family vehicle with our dog, and we went out to our little summer bungalow on the beach. And we stayed there until the day before school began. So that's like the whole rhythm of our lives changed during the summer. And so it was no television. It was no school. We went to swimming class, things like that. But it was like a very different pace of life. And it wasn't even like we had a ton of friends out there. We had each other. We just had family for the most part. And so you had to make the best of that, right? But it grew our relationships and it created memories because we did adventures together. We would go swimming together. We'd go fishing together or clamming, things like that. And at night we'd play cards or games. And so there was a lot of rest within the minor activities, as I would say, of our summer. Okay. And I look at life now, like you two, I can get tired sometimes, especially Jules, listening to her schedule. So we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the shifting of seasons and what it means to find rest and what God says about finding rest. So I'm going to kind of toss this over to you two to talk a little bit about maybe what it's been like in the past or what this season coming up looks like. How do you envision rest? what was it like for you growing up? Did your summers look like I was describing? Go for it.
You want to start?
Yeah. You go ahead.
Oh, me? Okay. Well, my family does do a lot of vacations, but we would mostly be at church usually during the summer or work. But for us in Rest, this has actually come up in my family. So every 7 years, my parents are pastors, so they're able to take a sabbatical. And so this summer, they're being able to take a sabbatical this year. And so they're actually blessing us with a vacation money. And so we'll be going on a cruise. And I'm really excited because I've never been on one.
Wow. That's
so
exciting.
I feel like just like the Lord has just handed us an opportunity for rest, like physical rest, because they've just worked 7 years in a row, you know? And so I feel like that'll be a fun switch from like going studying books, everything, to just being able to lay down on a boat. You know?
And be waited on.
Yeah.
And have somebody cook for you.
It'll be
And
so
somebody
nice.
clean up after you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about physical rest. I mean,
especially upon my parents. Like my
Yes.
mom is a mother of 9 children. Like she
Whoa.
is constantly working.
Mhm.
And so is my dad as pastor and leading a church. So it's well deserved for them. So it's beautiful, you know?
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's one blessing that the Lord has just given us, you know?
I love that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Growing up, all I can really remember is like going to swimming, you know, like at the pool every morning, riding bikes, playing at the park, you know, like going to the forest preserves and like walking around. You know, I think I had like a pretty like outdoorsy kind of summers growing up. Yeah, like no school, but like we were like in the library. We did like the summer book like
Wow.
contest. We
Oh,
had to
bro.
like read as many books. You know, like then you can get free pizza if you read a certain amount of books. And I hated reading, but I did it just in spite because I wanted pizza. The whole thing, you know,
Right.
just, you know, very family oriented, you know. But I feel like when high school hit, like things took a big shift because, you know, what we like our activities and what we wanted to pursue, like we didn't stop doing that when it came to the summertime. Like for me, summer, I kept dancing. I went to summer intensives. For those who don't know, I am a dancer and I grew up, you know, dancing during the school year, but then in the summertime, I just didn't stop anymore because, you know, you have to get better at things. And if you take a break, you won't get as good as you could have been if you had kept going. And I think maybe that's one of the lies about rest that we can start to believe is that if we rest, we will be falling behind or like we won't be keeping up with the rest of the world or doing as well, you know, like that performance attitude, which is very much me, you know, and we're working through that. But yeah, and then I just watch my siblings and they're always working or doing their sports that they want. You know, it's very, very much go, go, go kind of in the summertime still, because I feel like if we just actually took a moment and like did nothing, then we just get so bored and do not know what to do with ourselves, you know? And I think there is like a balance between like taking like a day to do nothing or like doing activities, because we need to do things as humans, you know, but that are restful, activities that are restful to us and that are like not about our job, you know, something that is different and creative, you know, to kind of fuel our like childlike side, you know, a little bit more. I think as we grow up and we just get work, gotta make money, gotta keep it up with the rest of the world, gotta keep doing this. But I think
Gotta get better at dance.
yeah, and then I think something about rest that is biblical is that do something that is you delight in, that is not similar or related to what you do all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Something that you can meet with God in that is separate from like the routine, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So something that's feeding a new place inside
Yes.
of you that doesn't
Mhm.
normally get fed in what your
Yeah.
job is.
Yeah, and I think a big thing, you know, when people go on vacation, normally it's to somewhere nature-y or a beach or a hike, you know, like a destination that you can like experience nature. And I think that says something about humans, that when we want to rest, we go to somewhere that we can engage our senses in. You know, you're going to look at something beautiful, you're going to go in water, touch the water, the sand, you know, hike something, you know, sweat it out and, you know, like
Go climb a
do
mountain.
things with people, you know, yeah. And I think sometimes when we just get in the routine of busyness and work, we don't like engage different parts of us, like what you were saying, like the different senses, if you will. Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting as you were saying that, what popped in my mind too was that going to, whether it's the beach or into the mountains and things like that, we're actually coming in relationship to God through creation.
That's good.
Right? And so that's like finding rest in that experience. And it can, you can be busy doing stuff there and still be like engaged in rest because partly because of what you said, you're doing something different. It's feeding a new part of you. But when you're engaging nature on that level, you're actually like actively engaging with God's creation / with God.
Yeah. It's spiritual rest. Like that's what that is. Yeah. When you like mentioned like with like getting busy and like every day, it just brought me back to like COVID, like year 2020 where everyone was just going and going and going. And then like everything just shut down. And like we didn't know how to handle it. Just like the year of the rest. That's what I called it in my brain. And I was like, I got laid off my job. And it's just all that I did was worship in church and like what we could do to bring the word of God to our church without going to church, you know? And so I was like, it just brought back the memory of just like the year of the rest where it's like, even though how brutal it was in general, like I just thought it was a beautiful season for everyone, even though we were all sick. I just thought it was beautiful how we could all just take a deep breath in a season of life, you know?
Right.
Before businesses got back up, you know? Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, that's the thing that brought me to
no, that's an interesting perspective on that season. I wouldn't have thought of it as the season of rest, but because there's one of like 1,000 definitions of that year, right? Or those years, I should say, but especially that first like year and a half or so. And so, but I can understand what you're saying, that things just stopped.
Everything
like all
stopped.
of the rhythm of life like came
like
to
quarantine
a halt.
happened. You're like, I have to stay in my house. What do I do? People who were like godly living, they would open the Bible and spend like the full day in the Bible, which is wild, you know? And so I was just like, it was just beautiful because I found myself in the word more often because I had nothing else to do.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, that is it. I'm going to bounce that back to you. What did you find yourself doing? In terms of that like initial season year
Other
or
than
so.
your COVID skill.
A COVID skill?
Yeah. You didn't pick up a COVID skill?
I did pick up a COVID skill.
What was it?
Singing.
Nice. Mine was juggling.
There we go. Okay, singing and juggling. So.
Anyway, how was like your restful season in that?
So when COVID hit, well, we were living in the inner city of Chicago, which was very dangerous at the time. So I went to go live with my aunt, which is like an hour away from where we lived. Yeah, and so that was nature filled. We took walks to the lake. I would spend a lot of time alone. We ate way too much ice cream. Way too much ice cream. I think I gained like 20 pounds in like a week. My father was very mad, but that's okay. Anyway, but during that time was when I like had time to understand what I was feeling inside and like all the heartbreak that I was experiencing. And I like actually for the first time brought my real feelings to God in that season. Like for the first time I like looked at a cloud and I like felt like God was talking to me. And I was like, what? Like this is crazy. Like in sunsets, and I would literally dance up and down the roads and just like talk to him while I'm dancing and, you know, worshiping. Yeah, it was like a very free time for me, like kind of. But then like half of it was like, oh man, this sucks because I can't go teach, I can't dance, I can't do the things you normally do, can't go to school, which I wasn't bummed about. I was like, yes.
It was a win. No one knew what to do.
2 weeks turned into like 2 years.
Yeah.
Because we thought we just had 2 weeks off. And then we're like, okay, we're going to get back into it. Never got back into it.
Right.
Yeah. So it gave me a lot of time to heal my physical body because I was injured at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And gave me a lot of time to heal my emotionally with God. Gave me time to, when you were talking,
spiritual rest.
The only thing I could think about is a song like, we make space, we make room.
How we long to see close. Is that how it goes? Yeah. I forgot how it goes.
Yeah. And so like that is what that season like did for me. Like they gave me space and room to talk to God. Like I would just stare at the stars, like engage with nature and like
Mhm.
through nature, God,
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and what's interesting, like hearing all of these things, there's the commonality. Obviously, the first one is finding rest meant finding God,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. That's good.
Snaps for Trish.
Well, and so that was a season, and now we're in a season, coming into a season of summer. But my concern for you listening, watching, and for us here is we shouldn't be waiting for a season to rest.
No.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay? So how do you or do you not
Like
rest?
cultivate rest.
Cultivate rest as part of your rhythm of life.
Mhm.
What does that look like?
Yeah. Do you want me to go or you want to go first? Okay, I can go. The way I kind of cultivate rest, just like throughout the weekly, for me is I just don't over stress my schedule. Like my sisters and I, Jules and I have even talked about it, where it's just we tend to overfill our schedules. But me, as I don't like to be extroverted all the time, like I know I have weaknesses in that part. And so I'm like, I don't really give out my schedule to anyone. And so I don't find myself needing rest until I actually hit like rock bottom where I'm like, oh, I need a nap. Goodbye. Whoops. Sorry. But yeah. I just naturally throughout the week, I would just give myself a day or two. Like sometimes I just need 2 days in a row of just no school homework, no social events, just to like reboot and like myself. And like I would find myself at night reading the Bible, just talking to the Lord, just rejuvenating every single night. And then every single morning I'd be like fresh and brand new. And that's how I like kind of regave myself like energy for the next day,
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's how I kind of find rest.
Well, that's good to even be able to recognize your need for that on a fairly consistent basis.
Yeah.
That weekly that you need to pull back.
Yeah.
Gosh, you would think it might actually line up with something God said about rest. I don't know. I heard it somewhere, I think. Like he said things about rest, remember? So, but,
No,
but
yeah,
I
like-
think, he talks about it, right?
My sisters, they would overfill their schedule, and as extroverted as they are, they would need rest, and they would crash like once a month, and I'd watch it happen, and they just didn't know how to process how they needed to balance out their schedule, and so that's kind of actually through them I like learned. I was like, oh, I can't do that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
So I just found rest, just filling out my schedule the way I can mentally process everything,
Right.
because then I'm not crashing and burning and I can still be dependent on God,
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, I am Kelsey's sister.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I'm not her like actual sister, but
Yeah.
in a way, I pack my schedule to the brim, and I know I'm guilty of it, and it's so hard to not do it. Like there are seasons that I'm like, yes, I'm gonna make this and like a lighter schedule, and I do it. And then the next time I have the opportunity to fill my schedule, I'm like, oh, last semester was perfect, so I can add a few more things. And then I get back into the same old thing, and he's like, nope, you're doing too much again. That was this semester. Last semester, I was like, this is a perfect like balance, yes. And then I added like 2 more classes, and I was like, no, die. So like, I think it's hard for me extremely to find a balance between like my schedule and all those things. But one thing about rest is I learned in one of my spiritual formation classes is that like, on the Sabbath day, so, whatever, give a whole day for rest, and how like hard it is to actually like in this culture give a full day to Sabbath, like not working at all, and like to start small in like practicing that spiritual discipline is like finding things you delight in with the Lord and doing those things. And so I like took that little snippet from what you're supposed to do like during the Sabbath day, and I like try to put it in every day and like in my little breaks. So I have like 15 minutes between classes. And so I talked to Trish about this actually, and I don't think, did you recommend this or someone did? To just go do something I delight in. And I know I delight in nature. And so in between my classes this semester, because I couldn't pull out of anything I already agreed to doing, So how do I get through this hard season and trying to rest at the same time? Is I would go to any grass I could find, just sit in the grass, take my shoes off, sit in the grass, look at the sky, or listen to some worship music, doing something other than like my job or my schooling, and like taking a moment to like self-check, if you will, how do I feel? How am I relating to God right now? Is there something that I wish I would be doing? Like if I would be feeling more peaceful, then how do I get that? You know what I mean? And then you kind of like self-checking throughout the day. I'm like, am I still at peace? Am I still having no anxiety? Am I still walking, with the Lord in the way that I desire to? And like kind of doing that self-check brings me rest throughout the day, Anyway, but like moving into the summer, I think I'm going to try to like find times, create times. I'm not going to try. I'm going to.
So like, how do you find time? Like, let me go looking for, like, time might be over here or there. How do you find time?
It's just me. I'm worse with this. But like, not like do, find time for me to be, Like in my class, we're learning like doing versus being, and like you gotta be before you do anything. If you don't be before you do something, then you're doing it out of rest. Like one of the quotes I remember from our church is, "We work from rest, not to rest." Like we don't work so that we can say, "Oh, I deserve rest now that I've worked." That's not how God works. He rests, and then he he was there for eternity, and then he's just, created things, and then he rested, So he worked from rest. And I think that's how we're created to work also, from rest. And so definitely this semester has not been the greatest for me in that capacity, but I do know that's the goal. And I think that awareness is what's really important, to like, man, I'm going to rest first, and then I'm going to work. So that's my goal for the summer, is to rest, and then out of rest, because I feel like when we're in rest, we can hear God's voice much clearer, much better, because why would we waste our effort doing things in vain, if you will, outside of rest? Because whatever he does lasts, and whatever he does is what matters. So why would we go try to do something we think, is going to help us if it's not from him or in him,
Right, initiated by him, and the timing is his.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you're talking about kind of like a weekly rhythm, and you're talking in your best stage that a daily rhythm is like, even in the middle of the day, even in a super busy day, to take 15 minutes and connect with God through nature in some place outside of your norm.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say for me, my rest begins in the morning. So that's my rest time. Like I, get my cup of tea and I go and spend like time with God. Just
that's beautiful.
God and me. We, whether it's worship, whether it's prayer, whether it's just like being quiet with him and just letting him do all the talking and me like just listen. And that like totally creates the path for my day.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell the difference when I have to like really shortcut that and catch it in little bits and pieces. I can tell the difference just in, I'm not as attuned to like the little kind of nuances of the Holy Spirit talking or guiding me. And I'll be more of a questioning, like, was that you, God? Kind of thing, my favorite question. Was that you, God?
Was that you or me?
Exactly. I know it sort of lines up with what the Bible says, but I'm not sure. So I think, but the importance of, I think what we're all looking at in different ways that we're connecting with God is that rest really is about him.
Yeah.
And it's not, it doesn't matter if we're lying on the couch, watching whatever, a Netflix gazillion shows, but we're having no like connection to God. Nothing. We're just in that, we've all been in those zone places of, 1,000 shows or something. But you don't end up leaving that rested.
No, that's earthly rest. Like spiritual rest will fill you up.
Yes.
Got him.
No, I love that. I find like some good spiritual rest mid-worship. Like I just like lay down in the pew or the chairs that we were sitting on.
Right.
And I just sleep. And be like, what better place is there to sleep?
Yes.
And I'm like, if you are just being filled and the room is being filled, like that's the best place to sleep, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If you need it, that's where I'd go.
Yes. Yeah. And one of my prayer partners for a season, she was struggling with like great fatigue.
Yeah.
And but she would come over here and we'd just get like really into worship. And that's what she would do. She would just like lay out on the couch and she would be like seemingly gone for the next hour while worship and prayer. But like that got her through and out of that season.
There's no better rest than
God's
presence. Like that's the best place to sleep, you know?
Yes. Yeah. So I love that God is so unique and so creative with each one of us that we're talking about 3 different ways that we find rest. And I can guarantee you that it's going to flip again, like a different season, right?
For
And
sure.
we'll do, and because God, like he's always moving us and we're always growing and moving deeper, hopefully, into him. And so what worked for rest in one season may be very different in the next season.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like you may end up running your schedule like Jules for a season.
I hope not.
And I'm not sure who of listening to this really needs to look at different ways to find rest.
Yeah.
But it is really important because where we come from in each day, to reflect God, to reflect like Jesus in us can't actually be reflected through us very well if we are like, shoom, shoom, I'm here, I'm there. And,
we can't be fully present.
No, we can't. And we're not even in touch with him enough. I remember one time I asked one of the pastors that I was working for, and I said, so, give me top 3 things you want me to work on kind of thing, because that's me. I want, I want to know. And he said, there's only one thing. He said, I want you to just be aware of the person standing in front of you. And I took a breath in. I remember that. I was like, that was probably one of the best things that I was given. I mean, I've taken that forward for all of these years since then, to be aware, be so present with God that I'm present with the person.
Yeah.
Because that's really what God cares about. It's not like my getting or you getting or you getting all of these things done. But it is that being so that we're being with him so that we can be with each other, whoever that person is, right? It can be the person you're bumping into, going into Circle K to get a soda or something, as much as it can be the person in your class or your family member. But when we're in that place of a rhythm of rest, then we can be present.
I like that.
We can be present for each other. So I hope this has ministered to you in your season listening, that try evaluating your rest. Are you living to rest, running till you crash, right? And we all have those examples that we can give. And if that is you or me, then let's take a look back at what God says and what a value God puts on rest. And by example, Jesus put on rest.
Yeah.
Right. So that is where I look to for my thing. Jesus found time away, even from all of his real close buds,
disciples,
he went away to have time, just, him and his Abba Father. And so that's kind of where I take my basic key from. If I'm needing to live my moments differently, then I need to rest.
Yeah.
So we hope that you find some rest today, and we are looking forward to being back with you, Kelsey and Julia. Thank you again. It's always great fun having you ladies here. And we will see you again next week on Are You the One? Bye.
Thank you for listening to Are You the One today. We are grateful that you chose to get into the messiness of life with us. We pray that you have been encouraged and blessed and are ready to perhaps take that next step. Remember, you are not alone. Please visit our website, areyoutheoneshow.com, for resources and reinforcements to help you navigate your way to the heart of God and His great plans for your life. Join us again next week as together we dive into the deep end of life's issues on Are You the One?